Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. There's a special place in hell for both the person who steals a kid's security giraffe and the queen bee who insists that the thief be allowed to take it. Good job keeping your cool, OP. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. If he says it's his, it's his. You sure you want to go with that? A tale from about 10 years ago, so obviously conversations are to the best of memory. Anywho, like most public places, our library has a lost and found box located under the desk. People could ask, "Did you find?" But you know how that works. Until, as time marches on, we get a new boss. Karen it shall be. Karen didn't like our lost and found setup. Instead, things had to go on a shelf behind the desk so everyone could see everything and maybe remember that they had lost a particular item. This policy lasted maybe a week before we noticed a big problem. As public places tend to do, we attracted our fair share of idiots and a-holes, including Jim. He came in one morning and upon seeing this new shelf of treasures, immediately claims everything on the shelf is his. That glittery pink onesie, his. That well-used pacifier, his. That one odd glove that had been sitting in the box for months, his. We all knew damn well it wasn't his and said so. And every time, Karen would override us. If he says it's his, it's his. Give it to him. Besides, he's clearing out this stuff, so who cares? Until the almost final straw. One of our regulars was a mom and her kid, toddler age, could walk, but had a stroller just in case, usually well-behaved, and always had Mr. Giraffe with him. And one day, Mr. Giraffe somehow got left behind. We immediately called the mom. They hadn't even made it home yet, and kiddo's having a meltdown. She says she's turning the car around and should arrive in about 20 minutes. No worries, we'll take good care of him. Showed kiddo a picture of Mr. G checking out a book. Disaster averted. Or so we thought. Karen decrees that Mr. G be placed on the shelf with everything else, just in time for a-hole Jim to spot it and declare it his. The entire building staff is yelling that it's not his, mom's on her way to get it, etc., but Karen will not be moved. She hands it over anyway because he says it's his. Sure enough, mom comes and no Mr. G. But we know where he is. Someone gets Karen out of her office and as a group head straight for Jim. Demand he return the giraffe, and of course he has no clue what we're talking about. Strange thing about kids sometimes, they see closer to the ground, and sure enough, Mr. G is poking out of Jim's backpack. Kiddo grabs it with a shout of joy, and all Karen can do is stammer, but he said it was his, while the rest of us are saying, we told you it wasn't. Now, you'd think we're done. Shortly after the giraffe incident, Karen and Jim are still playing their games. Karen heads to a conference and leaves behind a very distinctive, very expensive-looking water cooler/tumbler, bigger than a one-cup morning commute mug, but not a big jug either, which, you can see this coming, Jim immediately claims is his. I swear he was almost hopping with glee at his latest find. A week later, Karen returns only to find that Jim has her cooler. She tries to confront him, but all I have to do is say, it's mine, and they have to give it to me. That's the rule. We finally got our box beneath the desk that afternoon. It took a while to break Jim's habit. Every day, anybody turn anything in? Answer was either no or sure, what did you lose? What does it look like? Took a while, but he finally quit asking. And yes, Jim had other issues, but they don't seem to fit anywhere, like the daily blizzard of powder in the men's restroom. Damn, Jim, if you needed that much powder, go see a doctor. Insert obligatory, damn it, Jim, I'm a librarian, not a saying here. Pro tip, when your kid decides which of their 2,000 stuffed animals is going to be the one, get a second identical to that one. This allows you to occasionally switch them out so one can be washed, and in the event they truly lose one, goodness forbid. Oh look, Mr. Fluffy Butt was here at home the whole time. He must have taken an Uber home from Sheboygan. And our second story. You want me to roll burritos? Lose your bonus check. The backstory. I work at a corporate McDonald's in Michigan, and I won't get into too much details because it'll definitely give away where I live. The most important part of this backstory is that it's a corporate store. and it's infinitely harder to get rid of a problem manager because they have company protection. This means that issues keep getting brought up with no resolution, and we lose employees as a result. Our store fluctuates heavily between being overstaffed and being so understaffed that we can't function. Most of the reasons for quitting at my store are the result of one manager. The manager in question, let's call her Jane, pretty regularly won't let employees clock in if they had an altercation on Jane's last shift. Jane's a department manager in charge of the kitchen, with 2 other department managers taking over guest service and people management. Now, a fellow crew member, Terry, had recently changed her schedule because of class and was mistakenly scheduled 4 shifts outside her new availability. No problem, right? Wrong. All 4 of these wrongly scheduled shifts were Jane's shifts. They had a 3-hour-long fight about clocking in on Terry's 5th shift for the week because our scheduling manager and general manager both weren't answering their phones. Terry and I are both cross-trained in grill and in service, and most of the time I'm stuck in the grill with maybe 2 or 3 more people, and Terry being scheduled outside her availability did screw me. But I didn't blame Terry for leaving me a man down. It's safe to say that these two hate each other very much. Something to understand about McDonald's in the U.S. is that most of the stores don't roll their own breakfast burritos. We're given the sausage, pepper, egg mix, tortillas, and cheese. We place the tortilla on a wrap, place 1 slice of cheese, torn in half, on the tortilla, use a 3-ounce scoop to put the mix on the cheese, pile the mix in a line, and roll the burrito, then roll the burrito into the wrap. Get the process? Good. This is something that the afternoon shifts are supposed to be doing to fill 7-ish large trays for the next morning. No big deal. Until they don't get it done. A few shifts after the clocking in debacle, maybe a week or 2 later, the concept of time passing's a real struggle for me. Terry and I are working in the grill together. We run out of burritos and find out when Terry goes to roll them that we're out of the mix and that we just weren't told, because communication across even 2 shifts breaks down pretty fast. No problem, right? Well, Jane thought that Terry was just being lazy and didn't want to roll any burritos and told her such, and then to stop being so dang lazy and just do what I tell you. Now, go roll burritos. So Terry did, without the mix. It took probably 40 only cheese burritos handed out to customers and 4 phone calls before Jane realized that she made a mistake. Terry had made about 40 or so, 7 whole trays worth. Terry knew what she was doing wasn't going to end well, but she was told to roll the burritos, so she did. If anyone has worked fast food, you'll know about something called food costs. It's how much waste food is produced on one shift and has a significant impact on if a manager is considered for promotions and raises and is a factor in overall effectiveness as a manager. Jane's responsible for not only all of the waste from this shift, but as the department manager for the kitchen, also overall store waste. 140 tortillas is a lot of waste for one shift to produce, as is 3/4 of a block of cheese. What we didn't know at the time is that it was the last day of accounting for food cost to receive a bonus check. That little spike of extra food waste lost us our bonus check. It lost us the extra money for the store, aside from the bonus check, for things like renovations, uniforms, whatever corporate deems it budgeted for at the time of disbursement, that corporate will give us for meeting certain criteria, like food costs. Amazingly, Terry didn't get sent home, and we all got to watch the fallout. Jane is currently on probation because of this mistake, and if something else major happens, she could lose her job. She also isn't allowed to run any shifts on her own during probation because another manager has to be there if something else happens. I have since left for college, but I'm sure that Jane isn't going to be there when I get back. It's hard to change 8 years of anger in one day, all because she didn't believe Terry that we really didn't have the burrito mix. Wow, she was projecting her own laziness onto others, and it blew up in her face. Love it. And our last story. My boss stopped paying people, so I shut his pub. I used to manage an amazing pub/restaurant back in my old city. It's a 16th century coaching inn that had recently had a multi-million-pound refurb. I more or less got on with the owner, but I knew he could be a bit of a tool, so I kept my eye on him. I hired all the staff and worked closely with them. They were all 18 to 25, and I was early to mid-30s at this point, so I saw them as kids that were my responsibility. I genuinely liked nearly every member of staff I ever hired and wanted the best for them. Here's where we get into it. Every week I'd input the hours my staff worked and send it over to the gaffer to pay. One day, about 5 years into my tenure, he told me he was taking over that job. Obviously, alarm bells rang, as he's a known penny pincher. As anyone that's worked this job knows, it's common for staff to stay later than rotated quite often if the place is really busy or someone calls in sick. My staff were happy to help me out, as they know I'd help them out if I needed, and often they need the extra cash. My boss decided that if people worked late or came in early, then they wouldn't be paid for it. Staff that accounted for that money were left short that week. I had 18-year-old girls crying on my shoulder saying they can't eat. I was furious. I ranted at my boss, and he gave excuses and said he'd look into it and refused to reimburse staff for what they'd worked. Luckily, at this point, I'd lined up a new job because F this guy. I went on to work on the next shift, and my replacement in the evening, just as it was getting busy, was late. Now, I'm no sucker. I don't work for free, and neither do my staff. I went around the pub and told every customer we were closing and told them why. I took food off people and returned their cash and threw it in the bin. I sent all the staff home and texted my boss telling him, "Hey, the assistant manager was late taking me off. As I knew I wouldn't be paid for this extra work, I've closed your pub." Man, he was going crazy. Phones rang off the hook and got ignored. I was put on gardening leave, meaning I was getting paid for no work for a bit. I went into a disciplinary meeting hoping to be fired so I could appeal and get more gardening leave, but they knew that I had too much on them, so they tried to just give me a ticking off, at which point I told them about themselves in no uncertain terms and then quit. And the following week, the entire staff except the butt man quit too. The pub's on its butt now, and he's trying to sell, but no one wants it as it's underperforming and it'll cost a fortune. Sometimes people deserve to learn the hard way. It's too bad you couldn't swoop in at the last moment and buy it for cheap and bring it back to profitability. Adding salt to the wound, you know? Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.